Falmouth Is Cooking is made possible in part by the following. Appliances donated by Crane Appliance. Kitchen installation donated by M. Duffany Builders. Specialty studio electric and gallery installation donated by David Rogers Electric. Kitchenware donated by Eastman's Hardware.
Welcome again to Falmouth Is Cooking. I'm Gail Blakely, and I have been cooking here for a number of years. We've taken a little bit of a summer hiatus, but we are back, and I bet by looking at this you can't tell what we're going to be doing today, but I'll let you guess if you can. We are going to be exploring the wonderful world of tomatoes, heirloom tomatoes, cherry tomatoes, all sorts of tomatoes, as you can see here. And we're also going to talk a lot about how to actually use tomatoes in cooking, because I think a lot of people aren't always so sure about what to do with them. So I stumbled across an article in the New York Times that gives us a little bit of science about using tomatoes in terms of how to use salt. We're going to talk some about salt as well. And we also are going to make a few dishes that were submitted to our Never Say No to an August Tomato recipe contest. We sent this out to a variety of people, members of FCTV and staff here, board members, asking for their favorite tomato recipe. And I came up with a few of my favorites. And what we're going to be doing is, I talked about this earlier with my stager, Rita Pacheco. We talked about what to do with the extra recipes, and I think I'm going to be able to read the names on camera of all of the people who did submit and talk a little bit about their recipes. I also got a request for a recipe, which I thought was cool. So we're going to talk about that too, because it really rang a bell for me in terms of 25-year-old recipe from the Boston Globe, and the person who sent it to me, who sent me the request, said these were two women who cooked together. They wrote a cookbook, or they wrote the column together for the Boston Globe, and I lost the recipe, and it was a really interesting and very traditional French recipe. What we're going to do today is a number of, as I said before, a number of easy recipes, basic ones. One that took over the internet, that's one that I'm submitting because it's also very easy and very quick. And best of all, I have a guest today. I have Barbara Canelopoulos, who has her own program here, but this is the first time, come on up, Barbara, the first time Barbara has been a guest on a television show here, so I'm very pleased to have you.
Hello.
Thank you. Hello. And thank you for coming.
Yeah, well, thank you for inviting me.
Oh, okay.
Right.
And could this be any better here? This is Barbara's apron, which says, say that for me in Greek, please.
Kali orexi, which means bon appetit, which means have a good appetite. Right?
Good.
And this is my little Evzone chef here.
Good. And it's lovely, and it's red.
Yes.
Which is what most of our tomatoes are. And
yes.
We are going to get started already with, I'm going to talk later about some of the science that I mentioned and the salts, but let's get started with the bulgur. We're going to be doing your tomato bulgur salad.
Yes. I'm so pleased that this is the winning recipe. It's an ancient Greek recipe, but I'm curious about why it turned out to be the winner.
For a number of reasons. It tasted the best.
Yes.
It used a grain that many people are now cooking more with. This is bulgur, but you have a whole list of other grains, and I thought that it would be sort of, for lack of a better word, trendy.
These are the sort of country-style recipes because bulgur sticks to the ribs. It's nutritious, and it certainly fills up. It's widely used in the Mediterranean diet and a staple of Turkish cooking.
We are going to, in a hot pan, we're going to add a half a cup of the bulgur. And we're going to turn this down. And we are going to simmer it for about 25 minutes, Barbara, yes? Until it absorbs all of the water. Okay.
Turn it down to a simmer.
Turn it way down. And you think this will cook in, actually when I made it at home, it cooked in about 20 minutes.
Yes.
So
yes.
I'm going to keep it here just simmering. And it has a nice aroma.
Doesn't it? And it looks a lot like whole wheat rice.
It does.
And can be used very
Yep.
much
Yep.
as you would use rice. It makes a wonderful pilaf.
It really takes on the flavors of whatever you are adding to it. So I'm going to cook this. Can you see that? Just
Yes,
barely
yeah.
simmering there.
Yes, excellent.
And I'll cover it.
Yes.
Okay. And that will be right there for us. Okay. So we've mentioned the bulgur, we've mentioned the other grains, and we are then going to make a little bit of a dressing. Yes? And I thought that what we could do is, in a serving bowl, combine the tomatoes, bulgur, onion, parsley, garlic, and olives. So let's make the dressing. Here's what I'd like to do, is put the dressing right in the bowl.
Oh, good
Okay?
idea. Yes.
And then we will, your beautiful salad bowl, thank
Right.
you for bringing that. And then what we'll do is put the bulgur on top, add some tomatoes, and you get to pick which tomatoes you want.
Yes.
And then we'll toss it all together. We've got some fresh herbs and some dried herbs. This is going to have some capers too. No, capers are in the baked feta that we're doing. Okay.
I see.
And then we will toss it all together and sample it. I think it'll be good.
I love being able to not use too many bowls. So the idea of putting the dressing in
Absolutely.
is just brilliant.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. Okay, so let's get the dressing ready. And that's going to be some lemon juice, right?
Lemon figures largely in Greek cooking.
Why is that?
Well, mostly because of the olive oil. One of the great easy dressings is a spoonful of olive oil on greens with a squirt of lemon, and there's a wonderful dressing.
Great. That sounds wonderful. And as simple as it can be.
Simple and nutritious.
Okay, so the juice of a lemon. And I'm going to grab a fork for you. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm spattering you.
No, that's
I'm
okay.
going to grab a fork for you to sort of pull
Yeah,
that out,
yes.
okay?
This is a nice juicy lemon. It's disappointing sometimes when you get one that doesn't have as much juice. Oh, this is great.
Lemons are one of my favorite ingredients.
Yes.
People who read my food column, which is called Gourmets and Good Eaters, that I've been writing since 1985, will be able to take those out. Know that I'm a lemon fanatic. Just about anything lemon will make me happy.
Great.
So we'll get those out. How about if you do that? We'll do that at the end.
Yeah,
We'll take
okay.
those out. Okay.
Oh, this is good, just great.
All right. And then we want a medium red onion, straight from my CSA, my community supported agriculture farm. I do Pariah Dog Farm. Are you part of a CSA anywhere?
No, I've thought about that. I think it's a wonderful idea.
It's a nice idea. For two people, it's a lot of food and sometimes a lot of strange things
Yes,
that look like they just
that's-
appeared from I don't know where.
One of the reasons I haven't joined is it seems that I can't use all that food. But
Yeah.
I guess if you shop wisely, you can have things that don't need to be cooked immediately.
Well, too, you don't always know what you're going to get.
Ah.
You know, which is part of what makes it certainly interesting. It makes it a challenge, and it's always something new coming along. And then, of course, with our terrible weather that we've had recently, which has been the drought, which is,
Yes.
Lord knows, has been really awful. A lot of the stuff has not been able to come to fruition, unfortunately, but good enough for us. So.
And I'm sure people have not wanted to do too much cooking and all that heat.
Because
that
it was
we
so
had.
hot, yeah. Want to take a look at this with me? How's that look? Looking
Yes.
okay?
Oh, yes, it's absorbing the liquid, which is important.
Okay.
Let's give it right. Oh, look at that's just drinking up all that water.
Yeah. Do you want it simmering a little more?
A little more, yes. Okay. And it should soften.
Okay. All right. I can feel it softening.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to turn it up to 4.5 there. Okay. There's for you if you.
Great.
How about if we do this? How about
very
sticking that
nice.
right in your pocket there?
Okay,
so.
a la Julia Child.
A la Julia Child. So I am going to. I think this onion is very strong, Barbara. So I'm going to do just half of it. Is that okay?
Yeah, yes.
Okay.
Yes, we don't want to overpower.
No, our
the,
beautiful tomatoes. This week in my food column, I'm talking about panzanella. You know, the bread recipe, the bread salad with tomatoes and fresh vegetables. And one of the things that I talk about is how to really make, let the vegetables sit either in a dressing or just by themselves to really all come together with a very, very nice, juicy beginning to the recipe.
A special bread, a special homemade bread?
You can, I wind up using my homemade bread that's extra. But one of the things that I find is that cubing the bread is important, although true Italian panzanella is torn bread. Toasting it, even in a little bit of butter, can be fun. But the main thing that I'm trying to get to here is that actually we just need to keep the vegetables being themselves and let them totally showcase their wonderful flavor, which is what we have here now. Okay, so we'll do this right into here.
You know, let me, sometimes I will chop up a lot of tomatoes, rather onion, and freeze them. Is that a mistake? Do I lose?
I do not think so. I do not think so, no.
And then I sort of just quickly microwave them in before I throw it in the pot.
Yep.
So it's not a mistake. I sometimes feel guilty.
No, do not feel guilty. One of the things that, one of the recipes that I did get from Patricia Gadsby, who actually is very active in our farmers market, she sent me one for making, a recipe for making passata here, which is a tomato puree, which you can now see in bottles in the markets. Slice of Italy on Main Street in Falmouth carries passata, and I've seen it in Windfall Market as well. And what that is it's simply a tomato puree. So she suggests taking a box grater, putting it over a bowl like this, taking your tomato and just scraping it against the box grater, and you get the juice. You're left with the skin, and you have the seeds and all of the tomato pulp. And it's very smooth. If it's terribly watery, one of the things that you can do is certainly take it to a pan, like we're doing here, and simmer it a little bit without a top on it, to allow the liquid to leave it.
And then it becomes a staple that you can use in making sauces?
And you can freeze that, yes. You can freeze it in little Ziploc bags, and then you have this wonderful taste of all of these things.
That's a wonderful way to use all these tomatoes that we have.
All right, so here we have our onion, and now we want to add a few more, little bit of coriander. I just want to get this lemon seed out of here.
Yes.
All right. Coriander is right here. You call for 1/4 teaspoon.
Yes.
So a little bit.
It has a kind of citrusy taste. Good.
You know what else would be nice with this is an Israeli herb seasoning spice herb.
What's
herb.
that?
Sumac.
Oh, yes, I read about
Yes,
sumac.
yes, it's really quite fun. It's a citrusy. I didn't realize the coriander was citrusy too, but yeah, it is.
What's interesting is that we're learning so much about not only grains, but all about exotic spices.
Yes,
that
yes, Ras Al
that- yeah.
Hanout,
Yes,
all sorts of
right.
wonderful, wonderful.
They're not always
sounding things.
available in.
Oh,
you
they
have
are
a-
so much more now, though. I mean, our
good.
markets are. I get confused going to the market, and I'm a semi-professional with
Yes.
food, and it is just overwhelming.
Yes.
Totally overwhelming. I remember the first time I went to Paris and went to the market in Paris, and there were like 2 choices of milk and 2 choices of butter. There weren't 100 different.
yes,
so
yes. Yeah.
It's unbelievable. It's
It is, it
unbelievable. But we got it, and we should like it, and so we'll be happy with it, right? All right. So what do we want to add now? I did some salt and freshly ground pepper. Does that seem like enough to you?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, okay. And we're going to
then
add a pinch of kosher salt. I'm going to talk to you about salt in a little bit as soon as we get this done. So a good pinch of kosher
And
salt.
do we not call for olive oil?
Oh, absolutely.
Yes.
This is a Spanish olive oil. And I'm measuring carefully, 1
Yes.
tablespoon.
This
tablespoons.
shows us how much experience you have, your eye. There are so many chefs who do measure by the eye.
I know. Well, or they have people who have already arranged all of their little stuff, so you know you've got a 1/4 of a teaspoon. But you were here to tell me, yes, that was a
Yes,
1/4 of a
right.
teaspoon of
Yes,
coriander,
yes,
which is great.
yes.
The other recipe that I had from Patricia Gadsby was a soup that was actually made with Patricia Gadsby, Farming of Falmouth. Ellie Costa sent the request for Never Say No to an August Tomato to Patricia. She sent us the passata, which is pretty easy to do.
Oh, yes, I must do
and,
that. It's going to be easy.
And take a look at that tomato coriander soup and see what you think about that.
Coriander seeds, feta cheese.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
can't go
there,
wrong.
Yeah, there you go. So when we were just talking about the coriander, I thought that was, she uses here from, let's see, who did she say this was from? I think one of our farmers market vendors, grating the tomatoes using, this calls for halving the tomatoes, but what we're going to be doing is, we talked about the grating them, and then she adds the coriander seeds. Fresh coriander seeds to that soup, which sounds really good. So any of these recipes, as I talk about them, please feel free to contact me here, or people here can give you my email, and we can take a look at what you're asking for, and any of these recipes I have, I'd be happy to send them to you. So, so there we have our runners up.
Now-
And where are we here now? We've got our entire dressing made with our olive oil. And you
Another
want to
thing-
take a little taste. Yeah.
Yes.
Go ahead. What were you going to say?
Another thing that's that has been coming up quite often, that concerns me, is using everything in the no waste, zero waste. So although the recipe, Kokilas, a very famous, this bulgur Greek salad comes from Diane Kokilas's cookbook, The Greek Vegetarian, and she has this in The Food and Wine of Greece.
Oh, they look wonderful.
Yes, and with many bulgur tomato recipes, I mean, that cooked bulgur in stews.
I think, it goes back to classical French cooking and making everything as perfect as it can be. Now, yes, you know, one of these tomatoes might taste better without the skin, but the skin contains fiber.
Yes, yes.
You know, if they're heirloom tomatoes that you've gotten from a farm stand like this, you know that there haven't been pesticides, although you still have to wash them all.
Yes.
But they're healthier. For me, it's the same as potato salad. When I make potato salad, I don't peel my potatoes. I just go ahead and use either red or Yukon Golds and just slice them up. And
Well, that's very good to hear, because I've been doubtful about that, thinking that maybe I'm not doing the recipe justice.
oh, no. I think that if it tastes good to you and you're using up everything and you feel better about that, I think that's terrific. I really do.
So that even the peel of the potato, especially if it's got color,
Yep.
is
Yep.
good
And
for
crispy.
you.
It's got texture.
Yes,
Yep.
yes.
The tomatoes that we're using here, we have to choose a couple of them for this salad. So I think we're going to add those now and let the juices
Yes.
accumulate. Then I'll put in the olives. And we also want a little bit of garlic. But I want to show you, this is one of the heirlooms. And it did get bruised in its trip here to the studio. But I'm just going to cut that off. So never, ever feel that you have to not use your tomatoes because they look a little funky. Like this one looks a little funky, doesn't he? But isn't that beautiful?
Yes, it is.
But look at how
It is.
gorgeous that is. Now these are from farm stands. These are also from my local supermarket, I will say. That there you can get tomatoes now, like I was talking about all the other products. There's just so many of them around. And most of the markets actually carry them. These are, I think these are called Tinkerbells.
Oh,
Isn't that a cute little name?
lovely, yes.
They're like a cherry tomato aroma tomato. They're more like a plum aroma tomato with less juice and less seeds and more meat. So that's why tomato paste is often made of those. And then these, I think these are just gorgeous. These are called tigerellas. Here's a tigerella right here with the stripes. And I would say this is a baby tigerella, wouldn't you?
It is, yes, right. You know, it seems we can easily, if we're so used to buying tomatoes at the supermarket that are so perfect, we sort of can get turned off by the variety, by the dents, by the dark colors. So I think what you're saying here is that the flavor's there. The tomato is probably much better than anything we could buy in a supermarket. So,
All right, so let's do garlic. Whoops. Let's do some garlic here. And then lastly, we will put in some parsley. And we've got the onion, we'll put in the olives. And we want about 2 cups of chopped tomatoes. Barbara and I had a conversation about whether we wanted to show people how to peel tomatoes, which is very simple to do based on what you said, but I think that personally, I don't do it. And you were just talking about whether you should do it or not. So I think that basically we can just go ahead with the tomatoes, with the skins. If you do want to peel your tomatoes, all you need to do is bring a big pot of boiling water, bring a big pot of water to the boil, maybe add a little bit of salt, and plunge your tomatoes in after what you've done is put a little X right here on the bottom. So you put an X just like that, and then that goes in the water, and probably for 1 minute, then you take it out and you will run it under cold water or put it in a water bath, an ice bath, like as if you were blanching, as if you were blanching the vegetable, and the skins just peel right off.
I see.
It's a good step. I think, you know, it's...
I didn't know it was so easy.
Oh, it's very easy. And there's even one way to do it with just running them under, pouring them in the sink in a colander, putting them in a colander in the sink. I don't know where our colander went to. Oh, it's got bread in it over here. I'll show it to you later. And what you would do is pour the boiling water over that, and then as soon as the tomatoes have sort of shriveled a little bit because they've reacted to the boiling water, then you run them under cold water. So it can even be done in the sink, not necessarily needing to do it all the time on top of the stove.
Right.
So it is very easy. It is an extra step. I like Patricia's way of doing the passata and getting it, and that's just grating it, and then you discard the skin.
Yes, yes.
Although I bet that their skins could be eaten by pets, family pets, or animals, or that kind of thing.
Yeah, that's one way to use them up. I think I may be inspired someday to peel the tomatoes, but for the time being, we'll just use
We'll just use
whole
what we
thing.
got. Okay. All right. Why don't you pick a couple more tomatoes there for me, Barbara?
Yes.
To be able to use. Which ones call out to you? I think let's make it nice and colorful. So let's use yellow,
Yes.
orange.
Yes. Well, look.
Because we're going to want 2 cups of chopped tomatoes.
Oh, look at this.
I know.
Look at,
Isn't that a beautiful color?
Yes, yes. And, oh, these are just
I love those.
beautiful.
I know. They're very cute. They almost want to make you want to name
We should
them.
do a paint a still life.
Oh, that would be wonderful.
Tomato still life. So this one, and I think
Okay, and
maybe,
we'll do this one.
Yes.
Okay.
So would that give us?
Let's do pink. What do you think about
Oh
pink?
yes.
That should work.
So and that gives us 2 cups of chopped tomatoes.
Okay.
These have been washed.
These have been washed. So we'll get rid of the pulp here. I'm going to move this over to here. Make life a lot easier for us by just putting trash right here. And you know what I'm going to do, Barbara? If you would, I'm going to get you another cutting board.
Oh, excellent. So I'll chop this.
And you can chop the tomatoes. All right, here. Let me get your cutting board. And I just sharpened my knife, so be a little careful with
yes.
it, okay? All right. And the next thing that we want to do is I'm going to mince a little bit of the garlic with some salt.
You know, there have been lately many tributes to Julia Child, and I always bless her for taking the mystique out of
I know.
cooking.
She is just wonderful. You know, we celebrated her, what would have been her 110th birthday last week.
And also, I think in my case, she sort of gave me permission to make a mistake now and then.
Oh, so important. So many people are so afraid
Not to tackle things for fear of...
for fear of failure, yeah. Which is why I like cooking like we are right now on television. This is live. We can have our disasters, and
Yes.
we can figure out what to do with them after the fact. But you can see us actually make our mistakes and really rectify them or not. And we know when to dish whatever we have and get rid of it, ditch it rather. 86 it is, they say in the restaurant business. Did you make this tomato and bulgur salad at the restaurant that you and Chris had?
No, we early on in the 80s and 90s, there was not as much of a demand for ethnic foods. We did have the staple everyone knew about, baklava, and we had a line cook who learned to make excellent baklava.
Okay, spanakopita.
And yes.
Did I say that right?
Yes, the spanakopita.
And
But now, of course, in town we have 2 Greek restaurants, and the Greek food is just not so exotic.
it's not so right. Now, what's exotic are some of the Israeli dishes. We're actually doing at Highfield. We're doing some North African cooking.
Oh, really?
Coming up. I think that'll be really terrific. Very different.
Yes.
All right, now what I want you to do is just taste this bulgur and tell me if you think it's done.
Right.
It seems to be.
Perfect.
Okay, good.
Perfect.
Thank you. Now, the recipe calls for cooling this. So I'm going to show you a quick way to cool off your bulgur, which is to put it in a not hot bowl, like the pan is hot. I'm going to put this in, and I'm going to throw it into the freezer for a couple of minutes. It's one of the things I like about cooking here as opposed to cooking at home. My freezer has very little room for it, room for cooling stuff off. I'm going to put this in the refrigerator because it's very cold in the refrigerator, not in the freezer. And it'll just sit there until we're ready
What I
to
can do
do
then
that.
is just pour this the tomatoes.
I think that's what we can do. Let me get the olives in. How about working on that one?
All right.
All right, and then I'll put the olives in here. And then we need parsley. And we're going to be good to go. Two kinds of parsley. We have beautiful fresh parsley, as we have other herbs here. But you can't always find parsley. I think what do you think is the better parsley? Is there a better parsley, flat leaf, or the curly? Do you have a preference, Barbara?
I like the Italian.
The Italian, the flat leaf?
Yes.
It's really, amongst chefs, it's really an interesting conversation to have. I never always
But
know.
I tend not to use. So which one do you think has more flavor?
I think the Italian does. I really, personally, that's what I would use too. But you can't always find it. I was growing some. This is actually from my herb garden. But you can't always find the plants, and sometimes it doesn't make it through the drought, which is what happens sometimes. The other thing I want to show you here is this dehydrated parsley, which is now available in the produce sections of our supermarket. And this is a nice trick. So if you have this, it's going to reconstitute when you add it to liquid. But what I do is add a good pinch of it when I'm chopping whatever herb. A little bit of fresh.
It's somewhat darker.
It's darker, but it's the kind of preparation that, because we're putting it now with the real fresh herb, the oils in that are going to flavor the fresh herb, and the water in the actual parsley, the live plant that we're using here, is going to rehydrate and bring up the flavors, bring up what we're making. Sort of highlighted, I guess is the word I want to say.
This is going to be great.
This is beautiful. Okay. All right, so now I'm going to get your olives ready. Tell me about Kalamata olives, Barbara.
Yes, the region of Greece is, there's a region called, it's Kalamata. It's a large city. And apparently they're the best olives. However, they're grown throughout Greece. So I don't know whether or not there are certainly other areas too where they're good. But when they're labeled Kalamata, they just come from that particular region.
Okay.
The climate of Greece is very conducive to olive trees.
Oh, it's beautiful. And oil.
Yeah. Yes, right.
If I had been a purist, I would have tried to have gotten some Greek olive oil for us instead of the Spanish that I have here, but I thought we could make do with it.
It is. Spanish olive oil is also very good.
Is good. I use the California olive oil at home. I find that, I use very special olive oils. This is an Arbequina that we're using here, but I like the California. It's in the square bottle.
Yes.
It's available in all the markets, and for that reason, it's really extra nice.
And what I have read is that the California botanists and scientists have done a great deal of work in learning how to grow the olive trees, and it's just so much study has produced really great olive oil.
Yes. The other, I've said this before in some of these cooking shows, the other thing that's interesting about olive oil, I learned from Marianne Esposito, the Italian cook, who does cookbook author, does really nice cooking here. You want to get that one chopped up too? And then we're going to scrape it all in so we don't lose any of those gorgeous juices, okay? What's huge, read your labels. If it's bottled in Spain, yeah, it could be from Spain, but it could also be on a ship that they brought olives in to press in a big boat that is going to actually be in Spanish waters, and so the olive oil is not going to be actually from Spain. It will simply be produced in Spain, which they can legally say because that's on the bottle. But are the olives from there? No, not necessarily. Want me to get rid of that? Are you getting a little nervous about all that? You okay?
I don't have space.
Okay.
So, Gail,
yes.
olive oil is oily business.
Yeah.
It really is. There was a wonderful article years ago in the New Yorker about
That's great.
how much fakery goes into it. So what did you say about finding out if it's authentic? Read the label?
Read the label. I spend half my time, I'd say probably 75% of my life in the supermarkets and the markets. And I also do half of that time, 50% of my time in the markets is spent reading what's on the label and what am I actually buying with my measly little money now. Oh, that's beautiful.
Yes.
Let's get that. I'm going to pick this up. I'm going to let you, if you would turn the knife blade over like that when you scrape it in.
Oh, great.
So that way we don't dull the knife and we don't scratch the board.
Nice. Excellent.
And we're going to hold this right up
little
here. And we
culinary
want to
trick.
Yeah. Whoop. That's what we don't want to have happen. Yep, perfect. Okay.
Wonderful. Look at it. It's going to be very colorful, too.
Can you reach across me okay?
Yes.
Okay. Perfect. And that's why we have our rags in our pockets here, our dishcloths, to be able to clean up what kind of mess we made. So I'm going to let this sit for a little bit. All right.
I think that would be a good idea. It should.
The bulgur is cooling, and let's just go over our recipe here. We have the 3/4 of a cup of water, which I finally added to the pan, and a half a cup of bulgur. And I did not add any salt to that, Barbara.
Oh, yes.
I did to the dressing, but not to the water that I cooked the bulgur in.
Do you think we, well, with the feta, we have to be careful because that is also salty.
Right.
And,
All right, so let's get this all mixed up here. Look at, oh, isn't this beautiful?
Yes,
Look at
it
those
is.
between the juices and the dressing. And you're right, it's very colorful.
By the way, I think the EU does a good job of making sure that some of the food products are registered and are authentic. I think they're beginning to work with registering certain, say, boutique companies that make olive oil. I know that there's an attempt to do that with feta cheeses. I think it's only fair to those people who produce the product to have it marketed as authentic.
Sure, absolutely. All right, so while this sits, just give it a little taste. No, just do a taste of the juices and tell me what it needs. Does it need anything more? Just to be eaten, or?
I love it. I love the lemony. Isn't it good?
The lemon and the tomatoes are just terrific together. Yeah. Okay, good. All right, so let's put this aside.
Yes.
And
the bulgur will absorb some of this juice.
And we can let it sit a little bit longer then too. So, all right. So let's move on to our next winning recipe, which is Lori Jo Joyce's. She could not be here today, but I picked her recipe because it's very easy, very simple, and fun.
Yeah. And what's it called?
It's called Easy Peasy Baked Tomatoes.
Oh, Easy Peasy Baked Tomatoes.
Yeah. Here we have a sheet pan and a piece of parchment, which will make us thankful for the cleanup because we won't have to scrub the pan.
Yes.
And we're going to slice up a couple of tomatoes. So I'm going to do this big baby here. Huge. So this is about as simple as it can be. You want to just read what Lori wrote? Lori Jo.
So, just slice up a ripe tomato and lay the slices out on a baking tray.
Parchment lined, yeah.
Right, very nice. That sounds easy.
Easy peasy.
Oh, next, she adds plenty of mozzarella and Parmesan cheese to the tomato slices. This looks even better.
Okay.
Oh, a sprinkle of fresh basil and a bit of olive oil. 10 minutes to bake. Oh, I must do this. I love these. If I thought the bulgur salad was easy, this is fantastic.
And you know how this is nicely
look
to look at? Isn't that the most beautiful
Oh
thing?
my gosh.
You know, when Julia Child first did her show, this is what I was going to be saying, is that she had someone sitting right down here behind the counter, and she could hand all that stuff to that
I
person.
didn't know that. That makes quite a difference.
It certainly does. It keeps the work surface certainly well done. All right, so let's do this. What I was going to say before is that what you do with this is once they're baked, you can either serve them on a dinner plate as a side dish, or what you can do is serve it on a bed of fresh lettuses. You know, all of our lettuce that we now have, you know, baby spinach, all that stuff, the hydroponic stuff also, that is really beautifully raised and not very dirty, very clean when you get it. You don't have to obsess about cleaning it always. And I think that if you have the greens underneath it, it also really complements the
yes, it's a great recipe. I can see this for a lunch, light lunch.
Absolutely, yes. Okay, so here we have some grated mozzarella. I put a little bit of salt and pepper on there. And Lori Jo says lots of, add plenty of.
I see.
And we also have some grated parm.
And that's going to melt nicely.
It's going to be beautiful. If I get my, I thought it was a spider, but I think it's just a piece of tomato, I hope. All right, see, one of the joys of not supermarket, well, supermarket too, but farm stand tomatoes, you really do get who knows what, maybe sometimes a little bit of one of God's little creatures, like a spider or a caterpillar or a tomato worm, any of those, but we know what they look like, so we're going to take them out.
Proof that it's real.
Absolutely. All right, parm.
Oh, I'm thrilled about this. I never thought that you could do this.
Good. A drizzle of olive oil. I am usually a mess at the end of this.
I have friends who don't own aprons. Would you believe that? I can't cook without one.
No. All right, a little bit of olive oil. And then, how about some fresh basil? I'm going to put it on to let it cook a little bit, but also, excuse me for leaning in here, I'm going to then put it on fresh as well. So let's just do this. Chiffonade? You know how to cut a chiffonade?
Yes, you put it all together and then
rolled it up?
Yeah, right.
Exactly. Just like that, really tight. And then just take your knife.
Yes, sharp knife. Good.
Sharp knife.
You seem to prefer a smaller knife.
I do better with a smaller knife. I don't have really good wrists anymore. So I do a lot of needlepoint, which I always think is going to strengthen my wrists, but it really, I think, just strengthens my fingers. But this is, my preference is a small knife, and as long as you choke up on it for your chopping.
And it works very well.
It works well. This was a Christmas gift. Yeah, this is I like it because it's a pretty blade.
Oh, that's lovely.
So there we have this. Let's just add a little more pepper. And how about a tiny bit more cheese? This is going to go in a 400 oven for 10 minutes. And I think I have a timer right on my oven, so we'll get that done. All right, we're going to move on to one more recipe, and then we're going to talk some about salts and the 5 commandments of cooking with tomatoes and salt. But this is a recipe that is from a website called Dimitri's Delights. She writes a number of very nice Greek recipes that I thought you would enjoy. And what we're going to do with this is bake some feta with some cherry tomatoes right around it. This is a recipe that has been around for quite a while. I'd say probably the last 2 or 3 years, quite a while. And it took over the internet. So what we're doing is we're taking a piece of good feta cheese, and I prefer to use for this one the Narragansett Creamery, which is local to Massachusetts. Take a nice piece of very nice feta and put that right in the middle of the dish.
There's nothing like baked feta. This is melted feta.
And what she says is, my Greek heritage has filled my heart with a deep love of cooking and sharing home-cooked dishes. Here on Dimitri's Dishes, and these recipes will all be on the television screen as well as the websites for where they have come from. You will find easy-to-follow recipes, step-by-step video tutorials. So this baked feta and tomatoes can be served as an appetizer. It can be served as once it's all done, you can mush it all together, mash it together, and serve it as a sauce over grilled chicken. Throw some pasta into it, and you can add some olives to it if you would like. It's really a fun,
Sounds
easy.
as you might even be able to spread it on a piece of
Oh,
toast.
absolutely. Well, look what we have
What a great
here for that.
idea.
There, we have this to spread it on.
Look.
So, yeah, we'll have fun with that. All right, so here is our half a pound of feta cheese, and I'm going to drizzle it in an 8-inch pan. Season with salt and pepper. I'm adding a little bit more oil. And the tomatoes. We're ready for more tomatoes. I'm going to do a few Greek baby cherry tomatoes. That's what this calls for.
So grape or cherry is a reference to size.
Cherry are usually the little round ones.
Yes,
There's some
right.
tiny, tiny ones
Yes.
called tiny tots, I think is what they're called. If you can find those, I would certainly say to use them.
Are all these tomatoes from your garden?
Oh, my Lord, no. My tomatoes, I grow cherry tomatoes. I don't think I have any here. Some of my really tiny ones. I roasted them all this past weekend. So, no, these are actually from farm stand and
that's
supermarket.
Right. Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So we want roughly a pint of cherries. Well, what does the recipe call for? A cup? Cup?
Yes.
1 cup?
1 cup grape
Okay.
or cherry.
Okay. And grape are the little longer ones. Tinier, though. These are pretty large ones. But I think they're going to work just fine. And after I get them around it, then we add some capers, right?
Yes, a tablespoon.
Okay.
Now this also seems to me pretty easy.
I think one of the things we try to do here at Falmouth Is Cooking is not get people too worked up about long, involved recipes. My very first show, I did a Dutch baby. You know, the Dutch baby, the pancake that puffs up, and it's so impressive, and it's just really so simple. And that's what I'd like to do, is get more people cooking, have people really enjoy cooking, and learn how simple it is. It's
I
not
know,
that
and
hard.
you get simple but with spectacular results.
Simple but spectacular.
Yeah.
That would be a good name for a cookbook,
Yes,
wouldn't it?
Yes. Oh, a great name for a cookbook.
Simple and spectacular. Yeah, I like
Yes, so go to it.
it. Oh, please. Please, Barbara. Everyone says to me, after 35 years of writing my food column and now 15 years of teaching cooking at Highfield Hall, I don't know what happened to my career in mental health for 40 years. That just sort of went by the wayside. When is your cookbook coming out? And I say, I don't know, sometime after I retire. All right, some
So
capers.
maybe write down that title, and I think
I will.
that
I'll
would
put it
be
in my phone later.
right.
So, all right. Doesn't this look lovely?
Wonderful.
Okay, a little oregano.
Oh yes, definitely.
And I have some fresh oregano for the garnish. All right, and a little bit of crushed red pepper.
If there are three ingredients that seem to belong together as if written in stone, it's tomatoes,
Yes.
feta, oregano.
Absolutely, absolutely. All right, so there we have that. We've got our capers and crushed red pepper flakes and oregano, and then we're going to just bake this off for 20 minutes. So I think we have like 5 more minutes on our baked tomatoes, and I'm going to get this ready to go in the oven right on the next shelf. Now, what I'm doing is just giving these tomatoes a little bit more oil to be able to scrunch up and cook. And this is going to be quite spectacular when it's done. One of the things that you can do if it's not dark enough, if the feta hasn't browned and you want it sort of brown and crispy, what you can do is run it under the broiler. So I'm not sure whether we will need to do that or not. So let's put this in. Okay, arrange the tomatoes around the feta cheese, season them with salt and pepper, drizzle the olive oil over all, add the capers. We have crushed red pepper on here and oregano, and bake for 20 minutes. And then the recipe will say if it's not brown enough for you, go ahead and do it under the broiler. So this is going to go in too. And we're right here, Barbara, so we can keep our eyes on it. Look at those. Look at those.
Look at them.
Ooh,
That's wonderful.
my goodness.
Right. These recipes that you've done today are beautiful to look at.
Yes, I hope so.
What a pleasure to bring them to the table and
Yes,
serve
yes,
them.
and have people go, oh my,
Yeah,
yes,
yes,
yes.
right.
All right, want to talk salt for a minute?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so we've been using just one kind of salt right now, which is our Diamond Crystal Kosher salt, which is good for chefs to be able to use. Professionals use it because you can really feel it. You know exactly how much you are using. The other salt that we are going to be using here today is Maldon sea salt, which is very, very nice. And look at the difference here between the two of these. Can you see? One is so flaky,
yes.
and one is just more ground, more coarsely ground, and this you can actually see the flakes, which we're going to season everything with just a little sprinkling of that.
I've never used sea salt.
Try it. I think it's saltier than other salt. Doesn't it taste like the ocean?
Well, it's very salty.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Okay, so we'll use those. For cooking, kosher salt. For garnishing and for finishing a dish, flaky sea salt. There are other brands. I prefer this one. This, I often said this is from France, and it isn't. It actually is from Maldon, England.
Really?
I always thought Maldon sea salt was French, but no, it's England. And you can find this in most markets now, or certainly online, as you can find so many of them.
I can see why the sea salt is for garnish. Wonderful with tomatoes.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And it's not too salty, but it's got a nice rich flavor.
It has a nice mouth feel,
Right,
as we
right.
say. And the other reason we don't use it for cooking is because it's very expensive. I think, what is a box of not Morton, but Diamond Crystal. I don't know if the price is still on here, but what is it, $3.99 or something? I can't remember. And that amount of the sea salt, which we have how many ounces here? 8.5 ounces is $15.
Oh my.
Yeah.
Ah.
Yeah. But I think if you really consider how they make it, right, which is in England, they have to bring in the water and dry it out and do what they do. I think we'll do a show sometime on salt.
Yes.
That you could actually probably, I know some people here on the Cape do it, but then you have to pay for all of the transportation,
Yes,
which
yeah.
of course is what's affecting us all now. So.
There is, somebody has written a book just about salt. Yeah, there's
Oh,
much-
yes, yes.
There's much to learn.
Absolutely. Let's see how our bulgur's doing here. It's nice and cold. Yeah, that's good.
Ah,
Okay.
yes, yes.
So we'll put this in. Want to do that?
Yes.
Scrape it in and mix it, and then we're going to let this sit a little bit too, so that it comes together nicely. Oh, that looks wonderful. Okay. So there's our salt. New York Times. Certainly the cooking section of the New York Times is one of my go-tos. I find that Sam Sifton, just all the people who write for the Globe are terrific. The New York Times, sorry, misspoke there. But I really do like their food section. Their Sunday section is really interesting. Yotam Ottolenghi, thank you, is now writing for the New York Times. And some of my favorite cooks, Melissa Clark, trying to think of a few others, but they'll come to me.
Yeah, I think it's the times where I learned to make bread without having to knead it.
Yes, the no-knead bread.
The no-knead
yes,
bread.
Mark
That
Bittman
was
and Jim Leahy. Yes,
that was
yes, that
revolutionary.
was 2006 is when that started.
Really?
Yeah, a
Right.
long time ago. Yeah, that's a great recipe. Okay, so the New York Times, this is by Nikki Achitoff Gray, wrote, I'm going to read this because I think it's important. There's no comparison between the juicy, intensely tart, sweet flavor of a ripe, in-season tomato and the bland, mealy character of its cold weather counterpart. Don't we all know that? But even the very best tomatoes can be vastly improved with one simple ingredient. That ingredient is salt, and it does more than just season your food, it does science. Here's what happens. Salting facilitates osmosis, the process that draws liquids, in this case tomato juice, from an area of low solute concentration, the interior of the tomato cells, through a membrane, which is the cell walls, and into an area of high solute concentration outside the cells. Pay attention, because there'll be a quiz at the end here. More simply put, in just a matter of minutes, salt will cause tomatoes to release their juices, resulting in fruit that's less watery and more intensely flavored.
So that's what happens.
That's what happens
Wow,
when you cut up those
yeah.
tomatoes. And that's not all, she says. Salt stimulates your salivary glands, causing them to produce the saliva that distributes flavor to your taste buds. That makes sense. It also suppresses your perception of collectively these unique traits, which are what make us such tomato salting zealots. I'm not sure I really understand that, but I could reread it, but I don't want to bore you too much. And as it is true for most zealots, our salting practices come with a few core commandments. I never thought of commandments for tomatoes, but I guess if we have commandments for living, we can have commandments for tomatoes. All right, first one, thou shalt not drain tomatoes for tossed salads. If you've ever added tomatoes to a salad, chances are you're familiar with all of the juices that pool in the bottom. The answer, salt the tomatoes before combining them with other ingredients. Let them drain in a strainer or colander for 20 minutes. You'll intensify their flavor, and then you add them to your salad, even if it's just an iceberg wedge.
We've committed a sin. We didn't follow that commandment.
We didn't.
But now we know.
But now we know. We're okay. We'll do mea culpa here. So that's for tossed salads. Now for if you're making tomatoes to serve later, the same principle applies to tomatoes that you plan to prepare more than 15 minutes before serving. You can drain them. That's what you can put them in the colander, set them over a bowl, and save the juices, because the juices can always be used in a sauce, in a tomato.
Yes.
You can drink it, tomato juice from real tomatoes. Thou shalt reserve the juices. There, exactly what I was saying.
Good.
Make sure to set that colander or strainer over a bowl. The liquid that you'll extract is well worth saving. Use it in your next Bloody Mary, incorporate it into a salad dressing. In fact, salting tomatoes, draining them, and recombining them with their juices is a process that's essential to our flavorful gazpacho and Tuscan, classic Tuscan panzanella, which is the bread salad. Which is what we could have done instead of adding bulgur to that. We just could have added a little bit of sauteed bread. Okay. Thou shalt not drain for if you're using the tomatoes right now, Do not drain them. Planning to dig in right away, which is what we're doing. See, we're okay. Capitalize on the tomatoes' natural juiciness. Add salt just at the very end. Great way to enhance BLTs, breakfast sandwiches, and bruschetta.
Well,
And finally, thou shalt choose thy type and volume of salt wisely. If you're just salting your tomatoes to drain them, we recommend using kosher salt, a heaping teaspoon for every pound of tomatoes. Oh my goodness. But for tomato preparations you plan to enjoy right away, grab the finishing salt and season to taste. Flaky sea salt will deliver pops of bright flavor and a crunchy textural element. There we go. Oh, look at this.
oh my gosh, that is spectacular.
Oh, once again, we'll talk about smell-o-vision and how we
Look
really
at
want
that.
that. How is this?
Oh my gosh, that's really,
Isn't that easy
Yes.
peasy? Could that have been any more
couldn't
simple?
have been. What fun to serve that.
And if you wanted, as I said before, you could certainly do this on a bed of herbs. You could do it on a bed of lettuces. I happen to like these served over baby spinach. So let's get a spatula. And once again, Barbara, as you said, we are going to be eating with our eyes. So we do want to add some herbs and garnish up nicely. This would be great served next to a hamburger.
Oh my
This is,
gosh.
you know, pretty simple here. I think it's important when you are slicing your tomatoes. I was not so careful about this, but I think if you slice them all the same thickness, I'd say about ½ an inch, you won't get what I got here, which is a little bit of, see how
Yeah.
some of them are a little bit more cooked than others.
Or
Let's get this out of
you'll
here.
have a guest looking for the thick one.
Yeah, that's true too. That's true. And again, we have tomato juices there, what we were talking
Yeah.
about here.
Yes.
So here's what we're going to do
Lovely.
now. Could you pass me over that herb bunch, that whole glass there?
Yes.
Here's our flaky sea salt, just a tiny bit. You can put that right there to add some texture and a little bit of flavor. And smells good, doesn't it?
Yes, yes.
And now instead of doing a chiffonade, which is what I did before, we're just going to throw this on. Just tear it up. Why don't you grab it here?
Yes.
Tear some up for me, please. I'm so glad you're here. It's sort of everything comes full cycle, doesn't
Yes.
it? Oh, you were one
It
of my
does.
first interviews when I started writing my column.
Right, that's
And,
right, that's right. And we're now
Cooking
over the
together.
years.
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
And then I came on your show once, right?
Yes. And though I must say, just Friday, I made your oven roasted ratatouille,
Good.
which came out wonderfully.
Good.
So I, as I set it on the table, I thanked you. You know, it was just
Oh,
so
how nice.
easy.
Thank
It was
you.
so easy.
Thank you.
Yeah. I mean, you probably have thousands of readers.
Oh, I have no idea. Sometimes I think I just write and, you know, I don't know what people, this is fresh oregano I'm garnishing with here. Not always.
Oh, fresh
Sometimes I
oregano.
think nobody reads, but then I realize that people do read because
They
they
do.
recognize
They
me in
do.
the supermarket and they say, why are you buying Jiffy cornbread mix? And I say, because
Right.
it's my favorite thing. All
No,
right.
I have my cooking, my recipe file. I have many of yours that I've cut out of the paper and pasted on a piece of cardboard and
Oh,
stuck
that's
in there.
nice. Thank you. Let's do one more here. Fresh oregano. All right. I'm going to let this cool a little bit because it's
That
pretty
is-
molten hot, and then we'll get to sample it. How's that?
But it's beautiful. Look.
Okay. All right. So let's do
I
this.
wonder how our
How are the Greek, the feta?
melted feta.
Oh. Okay. So we'll move this stuff over to this side. We're not going to use the chives, but I like the way they look, so How to make baked tomatoes we've done. That's right here. Here's our beautiful cookbooks. I'm just going to put this tomato dish, which isn't very hot, right on top of the cookbooks, okay?
Good.
And this is absorbing beautifully. I'm going to get us a little plate, Barbara, to be able to sample this stuff. And then our baked feta should be ready to sample as well.
So we've got a total of three
dishes.
dishes.
Now, you and I had a conversation. Want to tell me a little bit about feta? I asked Barbara if she would be okay with the Narragansett Creamery feta, and you said yes, but then I found this one.
Yes.
Which is
this
actually from Greece.
Most of my Greek friends would call for barrel-aged feta. But that's very hard to find, I think, unless you go to a
Specialty cheese.
store.
Yeah, I would bet that Jen, in our Jen Dwyer, in our North Falmouth cheese shop, would be able to get that for us. So we're just adding a little sprinkle. We don't want this to overwhelm.
Right.
Right? Isn't that beautiful? Don't these just say summer? And our messy counter says clean up.
Right. These are fantastic dishes. Not hard to put together.
No, they're not. And in this beautiful bowl, too. They're very nice.
Right. Okay. And utilizing all the bounty, the summer's bounty.
Yes. Yes. All right. So let's see. I think that can stay in a little bit longer. And I think we can sample, and then we will be ready to... Here's your water if you would like some.
Yeah, thank you.
We will be ready to say goodbye for today and to remember to come back next time. But I think what I want to do is make sure that we've talked about the peeling fresh tomatoes. We've made Lori, Joe's baked tomatoes. We've done Barbara's. We've talked about the science of salt and how it improves your tomatoes. And I want to make sure I mention everybody who actually submitted their recipes. So this is the one that I said that I got a request ran in the Boston Globe Sunday magazine 25 years ago. This person is Kathy Schaefer, and she asked me if I could come up with a recipe or come up with this particular recipe. I checked. It was Cheryl Julian and I can't remember. I think Cheryl Julian and Julie Rivens, I think, were the two women who worked for the Globe at that time. Kathy remembers that it was 4 large ripe tomatoes, shredded cabbage, Swiss chard, thick slices of crusty bread in the bottom of the bowls, and the rind from Parmesan cheese while simmering. Doesn't that sound terrific?
It does.
So what I did was I did find something similar, and it was at Terry's Kitchen. And this calls for actually just making a tomato and cabbage soup. And what you would do is, as you cook it down, you'd add the cabbage, the garlic, the Swiss chard, let it all simmer for about 10-15 minutes. She adds this recipe has orzo in it, whole wheat orzo. And then what you could do is just spoon it over a piece of crusty bread. Yes. Or because you have the orzo, you don't even necessarily need to add that other starch. So thank you, Kathy, for getting me involved in that. I was quite a internet search, but I was able to come up with something. I also have Penelope Doobie from East Falmouth. She sent me a nice recipe for soused tomatoes from 7 Spoons, a cookbook by Terry O'Brady.
Soused tomatoes, that's funny.
Yeah, yeah. And they're soused in a lot of olive oil, 3.5 pounds of tomatoes with 3/4 of a cup of olive oil. So they are pretty soused. Yes. Then Eileen Preston sent us a nice Russian tomato gratin, a Russian dish, stuffed seafood tomatoes. Now this is a really interesting idea, stuffing them with, making essentially a bechamel, a white sauce, and then adding lobster or shrimp or crab meat, Worcestershire, and some grated cheese. Fill up the tomatoes and bake them. And she suggests putting them in muffin tins so they don't lose their shape.
Oh,
Isn't there so much we don't know at our age? We would think that, wouldn't you think that we would have discovered some of this. And then I have an immigrant Italian great-grandmother's tomato bruschetta from Tony's family, Tony Sedera, right here, taping as I'm reading this. So I have his recipe, which is bread and 14 ounces of tomato, olive oil, garlic, and basil leaves, and salt and pepper to taste.
Wow.
Simple and
Simple,
terrific.
but, yeah.
And then, as I've mentioned, Patricia Gadsby sent in the coriander soup, the passata, and I think that is it. I know that someone else submitted a ratatouille. Oh, Eileen Preston did the Russian gratin and the stuffed seafood tomatoes that we just talked about, and she also sent me a ratatouille recipe. So that was our field of what to cook with August tomatoes, and to never say no to one. So let's have a sample here. How does that sound? Want to check that for me and see what that's doing?
Let's have a look at this. Oh my, this is looking wonderful. I don't think you'll need to broil it.
Okay, no, it's bubbling beautifully. All right, Barbara, we're going to share a plate if that's okay.
Yes.
So we have less to wash. How's that?
Yes. It's wonderful to know that people are cooking such interesting things.
All right, and how about grabbing 2 forks out of that second drawer over? The other one, next one, please. So we'll do this. We always like to leave some of our food here for the staff.
Yes.
So we'll do that. So a little bit of extra cheese here, never hurt anybody. Oh, that's wonderful. I'm gonna do that right here. That can stay right there.
Yeah. And we'll
And if you would scoop out some of that. And I'm
cut
gonna
some
cut
of this
up.
feta.
Okay.
And a few of these olives, these Kalamata olives. So now, the taste.
The taste test. There you go. I can't wait to try this. Oh. Was that right? Did we do it right?
That is delicious. The dressing is just elegant.
Lemon is,
Yes.
and the little bit of raw garlic. And the longer this sits, the better it's going to be, right?
Definitely. That can sit in the fridge for a couple of days.
Okay. And it really does make a difference to use these gorgeous guys right here. Isn't that nice? And that could be room temp, or it could be hot.
Very good.
I bet you get kids to eat salad with that on top. It's almost like a pizza. Tastes like a pizza tomato.
That really very delicious.
Okay. Good. All right. And last but not least,
Easy to make, lovely to serve, delicious to eat.
absolutely.
What could be better?
Oh, and look at this here. So let's turn this off. Oh, you're right about creamy this feta gets. Look at this. So can you imagine just mushing all this together and then serving it, just throwing in some cooked pasta?
Yes, that's
Wouldn't that be
wonderful.
nice? Look at this. Ooh, that's just beautiful.
Perfect. Oh, I must make this. This is wonderful.
So I'm just going to put a little bit right here
Yes.
for
It's
you to
hot.
try. But wait, let me give you some little bit of flavorings here. And here.
Oh, my
This is what we
goodness.
want to do. There you go. All right.
Capers, cheese, what could be
Capers,
better?
cheese, and if you wanted to put a little bit of olives in it around the edges, careful, that's very hot. You okay? Okay. Oh my goodness.
Excellent.
So, moral of the story is never say no to an August tomato, right?
Exactly.
I think it's just terrific. Serve
Well-
this on a big platter, tray. Put your torn up bread. You could use those pita chips that you can buy, and all of that I think could be really a very nice, entertaining dish.
I have learned so much about tomatoes, about preparing them, and I'll certainly treasure these easy, wonderful recipes. Oh, thank you very much.
Thank
for
you,
a
thank you.
wonderful
It's an honor to
experience.
have you here.
Yeah.
I've learned a
Right.
lot from you over the years,
Yeah.
and I'm glad to see you in the kitchen with a bon appetit red
Yes.
apron, and our never say no to a tomato, an August tomato especially, but you know, even during the winter, there's some good ones still out there.
Yes.
It works with, in the winter when we've got our really yucky tomatoes that feel like cardboard, look like cardboard, sometimes taste like cardboard. Heat them up. So even the winter tomatoes, you could make something like this.
Of
And if they're
course.
heated, it really does make a difference. And the same thing for this.
I see.
So Falmouth is Cooking. I thank you again for coming.
Thank you very much.
And
It's been such a pleasure.
I hope that all of you out there can get a hold of some wonderful tomatoes or some less than wonderful ones and use them in these recipes, fix them up, make them nice, and enjoy them because they're not here for forever. They're just here for August. So next time we will be back in the kitchen a little sooner. I think this is August. I think we'll be back in September. And then I believe in October we're going to do something with pumpkins. And in November, perhaps our Tommy's Place cookbook will come up, and I'll see what else comes along the pike here for Falmouth is Cooking.
I'll be sure to tune in.
Okay, good. Thank you. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
And thank you for watching and bearing with us. Now I'm more comfortable with the stove again, and I think we're good to go. Take care, everybody. See you next time.
Falmouth is Cooking is made possible in part by the following. Appliances donated by Crane Appliance. Kitchen installation donated by M. Duffany Builders. Specialty studio electric and gallery installation donated by David Rogers Electric. Kitchenware donated by Eastman's Hardware.